Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. To follow us on Instagram, go to No Name Music Cast Podcast. To send us an email, it's nonamemusiccast@gmail.com. And to visit our website, go to nonamemusiccast.com. Now, on with the show. Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
And here we are. We're in the feverish recording season of the No Name Music Cast. We'll be taking a few weeks off in the summer to recoup and all that kind of stuff that you do. You know, you have to take a break. So we're recording many episodes a week for you, so your service is never interrupted.
They would never know.
Absolutely not.
With that being said, I have a little bit of music news that I'm feeling me and Tim are not going to recognize any of this, but I do find one interesting fact about this funny. So apparently the CMAs happened. I wouldn't have known that if it wasn't for the internet, because I definitely am not watching the Country Music Awards.
Yep. But
I thought it'd be funny to run through the winners, see if we recognize any of these names. I do recognize one of these names, but it's going to be a funny story in a minute anyway. So Entertainer of the Year was Lainey Wilson. Female Artist of the Year was also Lainey Wilson. Male Artist was Chris Stapleton. Duo of the Year took me for a loop because it's Brooks and Dunn. I don't know. I have to think they either had a resurgence or something along those lines. Group of the Year is Old Dominion. Female Artist of the Year is Ella Langley. Male Artist of the Year is Zach Top. Yes, his last name's Top, apparently. And new duo or group is the Red Clay Strays. Does any of that mean anything to you, Tim?
I've heard a few at the beginning. I hadn't heard of Top, Mr. Top. I hadn't heard of the new female artist. I don't know. Country music isn't country music. It's what they call bro country, isn't it? It's like, I lost my truck. And it's like, oh.
Sort of, but a lot of it's just pop music with a country twang nowadays.
Exactly. Or as Penn Jillette says, bad 80s rock with a fiddle.
Lainey Wilson is the one I've heard of. And I'm pretty sure, Tim, when I was talking about the music awards and they did like the special for, who was it? I told you Stevie Wonder came on stage. I don't remember who they were doing a special for. And I said, I don't know who put the girl in the middle, but they did her a disservice by putting her up against like all these great artists. I'm pretty sure that was Lainey Wilson.
Okay.
So, I mean, apparently she's really liked over there, but I just realized that was her. And I mean, Brooks and Dunn, I know who that is.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've played Brooks and Dunn songs in the past.
Oh, you probably have.
I mean, the thing is, for me, I don't listen to country music because it's banned in my house. So I occasionally will play country music with bands that I'm in, but certainly recreationally, I'm not listening to that.
I mean, it's not banned in my house, but I can tell you right now, I'm not listening to Zach Top or the Red Clay Strays. Those are not things I'm doing.
I know somebody called Gaz Top, who was a children's television presenter in the 80s, but I don't know who that Top is.
If I saw Zach Top written on like a band poster, I would wonder if it was like a ZZ Top impersonator. I'm serious. You know what I mean, Tim? That would be my thought.
Yeah.
Because they always like have like, it'll be like the Fleetwood Mac impersonator and it'll like be something about you know what I mean? Like kind of like a reference to Fleetwood Mac in some way.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know Zach Top. It seems like you're probably not a ZZ Top impersonator. But
I'm gonna Google Zach Top.
It's Zach, so I'm sure he's a Zachary for.
So he looks exactly that I thought he would look like. He looks like.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So he's about 20 years old. He's got facial hair that makes him look like he's 40. And he's wearing a cowboy hat.
Right. Oh, my. I don't know what I thought he was going to look like, but that was the. Okay, well, I had no reference point, but I don't think he's a ZZ Top impersonator.
No, he looks like someone I used to work with who had the same mustache.
I mean, I grew up in Southwest Virginia. He looks like at least 10 people I graduated high school with.
Yeah.
That's all right. Well, anyway, he has a song called Cold Beer and Country Music, if anybody was wondering.
Well, of course. I mean, he used the country music lyric generator to create that.
And this one's Cowboys Like Me Do. And apparently, Cold Beer and Country Music is on the album called Cold Beer and Country Music.
Oh, crikey.
So there you go. All right. Well, anyway, with that being said, those were the CMA people or ACM, whatever they are. I don't know what I think it's the American Country Music Awards, actually. I think it's ACM, something like that. They do country stuff. That's all I know. And it's an award ceremony.
I thought the ACM was the music college in Guildford, the Academy of Contemporary Music.
I think so. This is the Academy of Country Music. So that's why. Okay. So sometimes you see CMA because people say Country Music Awards, but if they write out Academy, then you get an A at the beginning. See, I'm not crazy. I've seen it written both ways. I don't think it has anything to what you said, though.
I mean, this music is important to a subset of people in the
if you
United
enjoy
States.
It, go crazy.
But I mean, it's so at this point it's so generic. It's no better than pop music in so much as that whoever's putting it together, they've probably had 20 people that look like that guy, and they picked him because he was the better singer or the better player or whatever. It's just, I don't know. It's not for me.
The irony is, Tim, I just saw where Zach Top was born at. He's from Washington State. He's not even from the South.
No, I mean, obviously.
Anyway, so with that being said, this is not a Zach Top hate channel. So let's move along. What did you have for the people, Tim?
Okay, so Diamond David Lee Roth surprised everybody by turning up at a rock festival, the M3 Rock Festival, with his new touring band and a whole load of backing singers. And he came on stage and just played a complete set of Van Halen songs. Now, as you know, Sammy Hagar is currently doing a residency in Vegas. He has Joe Satriani playing guitar, and they're playing mostly the Van Hagar era. So, like, Diamond Dave being Diamond Dave said, oh, no, I'm Mr. Van Halen, and played an entire Van Halen set. Didn't touch any of his solo stuff. And, there was videos circulating on the internet. David Lee Roth has never been a good singer. Even in the peak Dave era, he wasn't a good singer, and some of the later Van Halen tours, his singing was quite poor, if I'm being honest. But I thought, I watched the videos, and I thought Dave did pretty good. For Dave, for 70-year-old Diamond David Lee Roth, I thought he did very good. So that was like on a Saturday or something. And then on a Monday, he announces a 2025 summer US tour. Okay, so
we probably could have predicted that.
Yeah. So it's a 21-date tour. The pre-sale went on sale on May the 6th. Of course, by the evil Ticketmaster. You had to engage with the evil Ticketmaster. But the interesting thing for us in this area, he is playing in Bristol.
Oh, that's not too far for us.
Yeah, Bristol, Virginia at the Hard Rock Live. Now, they've opened up a Hard Rock casino and hotel in Bristol, Virginia. Bristol is just on the border of Tennessee. There's a Bristol, Virginia, and there's a Bristol, Tennessee. It's around an hour and 45 minutes, would you say, away from here? About that, something like that?
Probably. I mean, yeah, that seems right. Just under 2 hours.
Yeah, and they have a live music venue there. Which they call Hard Rock Live. And I've noticed some of the acts that's been coming in there, nothing that really was interest me, but, there were some artists I've heard of. But of course, when Diamond Dave gets announced in Bristol, 2 hours from the house, what do? We buy tickets.
Buy the tickets. Buy all the tickets, unless you have to sell your kidney, then maybe not.
Well, so the tickets go on sale. I was on the pre-sale. So I was sitting in my office with the door shut, hitting F5 refresh, waiting for the pre-sale to start, and the pre-sale starts. And the minute it opened, there was all the fancy tickets you want available. So I'm of the opinion, we've discussed this many times on this podcast. I'm of the opinion that maybe this is the last time we're going to see Dave. I mean, I'm also of the opinion this tour may get cancelled because he's cancelled tours in the past for various reasons. So it might not even happen. But I saw these seats 2 rows from the front, dead in the middle, right in David Lee Roth's face. And I thought, I have to do this. I really have to do this.
You would have regretted it every time if you didn't.
Yeah, the tickets were like 179 a piece.
That's not terrible, though.
So I bought two tickets, and with all the taxes and fees, it was just a shade over $400 to see Dave. And then, of course, we decided that we would stay in the casino, so we booked a hotel room as well, which is another couple of $100. But I have tickets, in theory, to see Diamond David Lee Roth perform in Bristol, Virginia, and I'm incredibly excited.
I'm excited for you. And that's like in the grand scheme of tickets nowadays, Tim, that's not bad. It could have been much worse.
Yeah, so it's I've seen Van Halen 4 times. I've seen Sammy Hagar solo, which I saw for my birthday, and in August of this year, I should be seeing David Lee Roth right at the very front, and I'm incredibly excited about that. Yeah. I accept the fact his vocal performance will probably not be great. It's 4 dates into the beginning of the tour, but I mean, Dave, as I said, is not a good live singer. Has never been a good live singer, but I just like the guy. He's a very interesting person who's done some very interesting things outside of the world of music. And the interesting things like he was an EMT, he was a helicopter pilot, he did sheepdog herding, like international
So
level
random.
sheepdog herding. He'd trek up the Amazon. I mean, all kinds of things. Dave has these adventures. You know, a lot of rock stars just stuck all their money up their nose. I'm sure Dave did too, but I mean, he invested his money in doing cool things. Oh, he lived in Japan for a while and learned Japanese. And then he got super into tattooing, and he released a line of like tattoo care products for both, you know, after you've had your tattoo and maintaining the tattoo and stuff, UV blocking and things. He came out with a line of products for that.
I mean, and you know, every other artist is always alcohol or perfume. That's always what you know what I mean, Tim? Like, I feel like that's all you ever get from all the other artists when they put out their brand of something.
Yeah, but I mean, he's a very interesting guy. So just the thought I'm going to be in the presence of David Lee Roth, he's going to be right there. It's going to be absolutely fantastic.
Well, we will keep our fingers and our toes crossed for you, Tim, that he doesn't cancel on you.
Well, let's hope, eh?
All right. Well, with that being said, it is Tim's topic, so I'll let him get into it.
Okay. So we did a guitarist episode just, you know, a few episodes ago where Joy was testing me with guitar players. And I thought, well, let's do a different instrument. And I'm not as, you know, was well versed in this world. So I thought I would make a list and we could discuss and what have you. But I'm calling this episode Let There Be Drums.
Fair enough.
So I've got some famous rock drummers that have been part of various bands. And I've got a song that I've picked out that does feature their drumming. And of course, we're going to mention their name and we're going to see where it goes from there.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay, so the first one, of course, I couldn't open an episode like this without mentioning this guy. This guy's name is Roger Meadows Taylor. He is the drummer for the rock band Queen, which you may have heard of. I don't know if you've heard of them.
Yeah.
And I'm picking a song from the Queen 2 album, very early in their career. And this is the song Ogre Battle. Now, some of the later Queen material, as you got into the 80s pop era, it wasn't actually Roger Taylor drumming. It was loops and programming and drum machines and that kind of stuff going on. But this is very much proper drums played by Mr. Roger Meadows Taylor.
Well, there you go. Now, am I correct? I've heard that he wasn't like he transitioned into drums. Like I think he played like the ukulele or something at the beginning, Tim. I've always heard that about him.
Well, he used to play the teeth because he was training to be a dentist.
That's fair. Never mind. That's not related. But I think he played some other instruments and later got into drums. But I could be wrong on that. Don't come for me, internet. I've always said Roger Taylor looks like the guy that if I walked past him, I wouldn't recognize him. Like, I would just be like, oh, he looks like an old white dude in England.
Yeah, I mean, you could probably say that more about John Deacon, but yes.
That too. I still think Roger Taylor, though, looks like every white guy ever. But anyway, with that being said, Tim, why did you pick Ogre Battle?
Because it has a very distinctive drum pattern on it and it's very distinctive sort of percussive element together where it syncopates with the guitar. It's kind of cool. Now, I will say I've met Roger Taylor. Have I ever told you that story?
I don't remember off the top of my head if you have.
Okay, so he had a solo album out called Happiness
Hmm.
in the mid 90s. Now, he released a lot of solo albums. One interesting thing about Roger Taylor is he's a multi instrumentalist and a songwriter. He plays guitar, he plays keyboards, and he plays drums, and he sings.
Maybe that's why I thought he started out as something else. I don't know.
Yeah, he is the complete package. In fact, just sidestepping from that a little bit, in the song "A Kind of Magic," you know, there's a line of Freddie Mercury says, "and secret harmonies," and it goes, and the guitar
Yeah.
goes, "Ba-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la."
Is he the one playing?
That is Roger Taylor playing that because they'd left all the equipment in the studio. All of Brian May's gear was there, so he recorded a Brian May style part using Brian May's gear.
I mean, it fit. Like I love that song, so I don't think I would have noticed it if you had to put it out. You probably would have, but I wouldn't have.
Yeah, yeah. But anyhow, Roger Taylor released an album called Happiness in the 90s, and he did a signing at HMV up in London. And I lined up with my friend Rowena for probably an hour or so, and I got to meet Roger Taylor. He signed my album, and I had a little chat with him. And this was obviously before cameras were invented, so there's no photographic evidence of this. But I met the man.
Before photographs were invented, were photographs invented in like the 1800s, Tim?
They were, but back before digital photography was a thing, you had to be so deliberate with photographs. You would go on an amazing trip for maybe 2 weeks, and you'd shoot 36 photos.
I mean, that's fair. I'm just saying, though, it's just funny the way you said that, as if people don't already wonder how old you are. Before photographs were invented, I met Roger Taylor for Queen.
I mean, every photograph I've ever had that existed, to my knowledge, I've scanned and is in my archives now. But I mean, there were so many things that I did back before digital photography was mainstream that I don't have any record of because you didn't carry a camera with you all the time because you had to be so deliberate with that.
I mean, that's fair. I'll give you that. Now, I do like that you picked something from Queen 2 because that's more of what known as their concept album, I guess you could say, Tim. And that song specifically, if you haven't heard the Ogre Battle, I always think of Shrek, but that's not related. It is kind of a really cool kind of battle song, though. Like, it's very fun. And if you were a drummer, I imagine it would be fun to play.
Yeah, and it also features in the Queen musical "We Will Rock You." There's a bit in it where Ogre Battle is used.
Oh, that's a good point because that might be more of one where people had heard it than just obviously it's not a song that's playing in CVS right now.
I think it's highly unlikely anything from Queen 2 is playing in CVS.
It's giving concept album. And that's what we're going to say. It fit the 70s. I mean, I don't know if any of the songs on that album technically a single Tim, because I know you've got like Father to Sons on there.
The only one would be Seven Seas of Rye. That's probably a casual Queen fan would know that, but certainly much of the songs in there a casual fan would not know. The original pressing had a black side and a white side, and it was themed where the music was themed differently for each side. But I don't know. I love Queen 2. Queen 2 sometimes is my favorite Queen album, but also Innuendo is sometimes my favorite Queen album. So it varies.
Look at you, Tim. You know, we appreciate your flexibility.
Well, thank you, Joy.
All right, what's the next song? Tim was not expecting me to say that. What's the next song?
Well, the next song is by The Police from the album Ghosts in the Machine. And this is a song, Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic. Now, the drummer is Stuart Copeland, a amazing virtuoso drummer. And also, he is a composer. He composes film scores, amongst other things. Now, I picked this song because I've heard this song 1,000 times. And, it's a great Police song. And then there was a video that surfaced. I think I sent it to you, Joy, where he's doing like a sit-down drum clinic YouTube thing where, they have drummers in and said, oh, what did you play on this song? And they play along with it and stuff. So he's playing along with Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic. And I didn't realize what he's playing in that song. He is playing virtuoso drumming. Like, I'm not a drummer, and in some respects, I find drummers that play over the top all the time. It's annoying to play with as a fellow musician because you just want to keep the beat, and they're doing all this fancy stuff. But this song, he is playing all this technically amazing stuff and very fancy rhythms and things. However, it completely fits in the context of this song. And until you see this video, and you can Google it if you want to find it. Until you see this video, you don't realize what he's doing because it sits in the track so well. Because he's just drumming along with the original recording, and it's like this is mind blowing.
You did send me that, Tim, and I just pulled it back up because I remember you sending it to me on Facebook. And yeah, wow. But the thing about it is when you listen to the song, Tim's right. It's giving, I hate to say this, it's giving 80s pop music, right? I mean, every little thing she does is magic. It's basic. And you would think, from like an outside perspective, you wouldn't expect a virtuoso drummer to be playing on it. But he's also known, I think, just in general in the music world as being one of the best. So,
oh, 100%. If you ask your average drummer who's the best drummer in the world, many of them will say Stuart Copeland.
But I just pulled up the sheet music for it because I was really curious with the drum notations, and it's absolutely bonkers. So.
Yeah, it's completely all over the place. But compared to some songs which just have virtuoso drumming for virtuoso's sake, every hit that he makes on that track fits completely.
And it doesn't take over the song because, like Tim's saying, one thing you have to be careful as a drummer is any amount of a good drummer or a bad drummer, depending on what they're doing on it, they can take over the whole music. They can take over everything. And that's all you hear, especially when this kind of stuff is happening. Wow, I'd never really looked at, I'd never even thought to look at the sheet music until you said that, Tim. And that's actually crazy.
Yeah. And plus, it's just a really good song.
I don't think there's very many songs the Police did that I don't like.
No. Well, there's a track called Mother. You don't want to listen to that. It's terrible.
Well, that's fair. I don't even know that I know that song, so maybe I'll just live my life without it, Tim. Is it really that bad?
It's what's that? It's like an experimental song, I suppose. It's not good.
It's a concept piece.
That's correct, Joyce. I think you've nailed that.
That's what you always say when you don't know how to describe it. It's a concept piece. It's new age. We were going for like that new age kind of synth feel. But to be fair, one thing I always think about when I think about the Police, regardless of drummers or not, even though this is not related, is how iconic they were to forming MTV.
Oh, absolutely.
MTV played them on loop, but I've said this many times, is because most of the bands that were played on MTV came from the UK because they had Top of the Pops. We've said that 1,000 times on this podcast. But if you go back and look, there was like a thing I read that said like every third song on MTV the first year it was available was the Police. There you go.
It honestly wouldn't surprise me.
I mean, I never know if it's accurate, but it seems accurate because and I think part of it was their look too, Tim. They had the right look for like selling early 90s rock music. The Police did.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Sting, very handsome man with that high-pitched sort of reggae thing he had going on. I mean, yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, we can move on. I was just kind of chatting there. But yes, what's next, Tim?
Okay, so I'm going to pick the song Are You Gonna Go My Way by Lenny Kravitz. Now, on the original recording of this, the studio version, if you will, all the instruments are being played by Lenny Kravitz himself. I think the guitaring is Craig Ross, but the drums and the bass and the vocals and the guitars and the harmonies and stuff, it is all Lenny Kravitz. But the video famously features a drummer called Cindy Blackman. And she's got like the big hair and she's like really getting into it and stuff.
She's very distinct.
Yeah. And she was Lenny Kravitz's touring drummer for many years. I think she still performs with Lenny Kravitz. She's an amazing rock and roll drummer. And she does have another celebrity connection because she's married to Carlos Santana.
I mean, that's what I know her for, because I think her name is actually Cindy Blackman-Santana now.
That's correct.
That's her full name. And that's the drummer. Oh my gosh, Tim, you answered my question. Remember last week when we were recording, I said there was a female drummer that came on the Kennedy Center Otters, and I couldn't recognize her. They had her play the bongos. And they made a reference. Carlos Santana was on that same one, and I can't remember who they were honoring. Maybe they were honoring Carlos Santana. I can't remember. But she comes out, and she's the drummer of the Kennedy Center Otters that everybody was Gloria Stefan. That's who they were honoring. That's who they were ordering. She comes out, and I remember seeing her, and like, she was mesmerizing, to be honest, like one of the best drummers I've ever seen in my entire life. And that might be my first exposure to her, outside of the fact that I knew that she was a drummer and she was married to Carlos Santana.
Yeah, there's a concert. I think I've spoken about before. There's a concert that's on Peacock if you have that from some iTunes thing or Apple concert or some shenanigans like that. And she's playing drums on that, and it's absolutely superb. I mean, she is the best drummer for that band. She just fits it perfectly. But it's a shame that what most people know her for is being in the "Are You Gonna Go My Way" video, and she's not even drumming on that. She's only drumming in the video.
That just goes to show you. Oh, Sheila E. is the other one, of course, that played during that little scenario too. I'm sure you've heard of Sheila E. before.
Yeah, Sheila E. was Prince's drummer for many years.
Yes, so Cindy Blackman-Santana and Sheila E. came out at the Kennedy Center Honors for Gloria Estefan. I just remember last week I kept trying to remember which drummer it was, and it would not register with me. So Tim, you broke the loop and you didn't even know you were doing it.
There we are.
I'll forget it by next week and scream it out at some point, but that's okay, not related. All right, what's our next drummer?
Okay, so the next one I have is, well, you couldn't have a drumming episode without discussing this. This is so incredibly iconic. The drum roll in particular is so iconic. This is from the album Face Value. This is by Phil Collins, and this is the song In the Air Tonight.
Well, I mean, I feel like every Phil Collins song has some iconic drum piece to it, but Tim is correct. You couldn't do a drum episode without this. I'm actually disappointed in the fact that we'll probably never get to see Phil Collins again. I haven't seen him in a long time, but the last time I saw him, he looked pretty rough. And I guess I had never really thought, and you know, I know this, but physically drumming like that on the body for years has to be so hard.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the last Genesis tour, he didn't drum. His son actually was drumming for him. Oh, but wait, his son's a great drummer, but, you know, he was drumming in his place, if you will. My understanding is that Phil cannot drum anymore because his back is really badly messed up. He did the whole tour sitting down because he was so painful for him to stand. Yeah, and it's a shame because he's such an iconic drummer. He's played on so much tracks outside of Genesis and his own solo work. And, you know, he's seen as a virtuoso drummer, you know, not in the same school as Stuart Copeland, but certainly in the world of rock and pop, he's one of the absolute greats. Now, what's interesting about In the Air Tonight, it's got that bit at the beginning, which is actually just a drum machine. And then it gets the boom, 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 boom. And that is the first recorded example of gated reverb.
That's, but isn't that kind of what his style became known as over time? Because I've heard that term before.
It did. So when you record in a studio, normally you would isolate the drums and then all the drums are mic'd and they go into the mixing board and that's what you're recording. But they have a talkback microphone in there, which is just a very simple microphone. So you can communicate with the person in the who's mixing it, the producer, the engineer, or whoever was involved in that. So they were recording, and I think the channels for the desk for the drums were muted, and they just had the talkback on. And he does that roll, and it sounded amazing. And they couldn't work out why it sounded so good. And it turned out that it was the way it was set up. So they emulated that using gated reverb, and it's very, very famous. And then now, you know, if you buy like a drum package for your recording software, there's like there's a Phil Collins preset that does that.
That's what I was going to say. I think he famously became known as that his style. I'm not sure I ever understood what it meant, but I've heard that term before. I mean, but you're probably right. But that's not the only song, though, that like he uses that sound. That there's like 3 or 4 other songs, probably plenty more that I can think of that do fit him in that way.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it became his signature. You know, from there on, and it really did become his signature.
Is it easy to replicate if you're playing live, though, that sound?
And with modern technology, absolutely. I mean, you can make anything sound like anything.
That's true. What am I thinking, Tim?
I mean, I have a $300 processor that can sound like basically any guitar amplifier ever made. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know why I asked that question. All right. All right. What's the next one, Tim?
Okay, so let's go with this one. This is Led Zeppelin from Led Zeppelin 2. Now, I haven't been listening to a lot of Led Zeppelin this year, so I don't think it's going to appear on my Spotify Wrapped.
Fair enough. All right. Unless I do an episode and force you to.
Well, that's true. And this is the song Moby Dick. Now, the drummer is John Bonham. His son continues his legacy to this day, Jason Bonham. He's played with Sammy Hagar, he's played with Foreigner, he's played with all different people. But John Bonham, was his father and was the drummer in Led Zeppelin. And Moby Dick, the song I picked out, the studio version has a drum solo on it, but if you listen to any live concert or live video of Led Zeppelin, Moby Dick is where he would do his massive 15-minute long drum solo where most people probably went to the bar, if I'm being completely honest.
I kind of always isn't that like whole song an instrumental drum solo?
I mean, more or less. I mean, the studio version, the version on the album, it does have a musical bit at the beginning, and then there's a good chunk. I knew that. Yeah, and there's a good chunk of drumming, and then it picks back at the end. But yeah, any live concert you have, it's just there's an awful lot of drumming.
I'm not, like I said many times, I'm not a huge Led Zeppelin fan by any stretch. I always find it weird that Led Zeppelin's from England, famously, because I in my brain, I associate them as an American band. We talked about this. There's like a weird obsession with certain bands in America that don't always translate. And Led Zeppelin's one of them. But to be fair, this song is, like Tim said, all I remember of it is like a bluesy rock kind of riff drum solo song.
Absolutely. And we said before, Led Zeppelin is like part of US culture. It's woven into US culture, mostly because rock radio plays it every third song. But they don't have the same cachet in the UK. And certainly in the UK, they never ever released any singles. They only released albums. There was never any singles of anything released in the UK.
And the irony is that's where they're from. It's just weird. Guess it just depends on who you resonate with. Like I said many times, Elton John famously has said that he was famous because of America, not England.
Yeah.
So, well, anyway. All right, well, what's the next song to him?
Okay, so I'm going to go with the album Who Are You by The Who. The drummer is Keith Moon, who is the original drummer for The Who. Of course, you had Keith Moon, and later on you had Zach Starkey, who got fired and unfired and rehired and stuff. So, old man shenanigans going on there with Zach Starkey, who of course is Ringo's son. But I'm going with the original drummer, Keith Moon. And the song is Who Are You? Now, this is a great Who song, a Who song I really enjoy. And the Who, on their official YouTube channel, remastered and upscaled the video for it. And it has Keith Moon playing the drums in it. Apparently, he was incredibly messed up on drink and drugs when it was filmed. They took him 52 takes to do it because he would drum a bit and then basically collapse. But but when you see it, he's got his headphones duct taped to his head.
Good Lord.
And the reason was he was so messed up with drink and drugs. He was sweating so profusely. The headphones kept slipping off his head. So they duct tape him to his head.
Yeah, well, I mean, he did pass away in 78 or something along those lines. So I'm not really surprised. But with that being said, this song specifically is one of those songs they have to be making so much money off of. And here's why. It was used on American Idol. Yep. It was used on CSI at the beginning. It's now used on The Masked Singer. Every time they take one of the costumes' heads off, it's "Who are you?" That's 3 shows I know off the top of my head that mass produced this song.
Yeah, Hannah and I were super into CSI, the original CSI Vegas. We watched it from the beginning to end, and we were super into that. Around the time we got married, there was like a thing that we was into, and we watched all the episodes. Mm-hmm. And yes, the very first season used a different opening title music, but from season 2 onwards, it was the Who's Who Are You. Now, are you aware that the Who Are You is a big story song?
I don't think so.
So it recounts Pete Townsend going drinking in central London.
It always goes back to the alcohol.
Yeah, with Joe Strummer from The Clash. He was drinking gin, a lot of gin with Joe Strummer from The Clash. He was coming back to Richmond where he lives. Yeah. And he was wandering through the middle of London, passes out in a doorway in Soho and collapses and falls asleep. And then a police officer says, sort of kicks him. And he said, hey, buddy. He said, I know who you are. He said, if you can just get up and walk away. He said, we won't worry about this. And then Pete Townsend says, who are you? Who the F are you? And then it all kicks off from there. And the whole story is in the song. If you listen to the lyrics, it tells you exactly what. I woke up in a Soho doorway. A policeman knew my name.
Yeah, that is what it says. You're right. Now that I'm hearing it, I mean, to be fair, now the chorus is all that runs through my head because it's been used in every TV show, like I said. But yeah, that makes sense, though.
Yeah, but as we've said before, Keith Moon is a very unique drummer in the sphere of rock because he's one of these drummers that it was kind of all over the place. He didn't use a hi-hat. He used a ride cymbal in the place of a hi-hat. And he was, very, very busy. But the dynamic of the Who was very different because Townsend really was the drummer, if you like. And then John Entwistle was the lead guitarist. And then Moon, he was like the orchestra. He was doing everything else, but somehow it worked. But the thing is, you couldn't put him in any other band because it just wouldn't be the same.
I wonder how. Okay, well, now that you said that about the ride cymbal, I've been thinking about because everybody uses a hi-hat, usually closed, just to keep the beat with your snare drum. Very often, are you not gonna? You're gonna use the ride cymbal to keep beat, sort of. It can be used to make steady, but it's still kind of got a little bit of that crash sound after. Mm-hmm. And now that you said that, I'm thinking about Led Zeppelin songs. I've heard it. I'm like, I've never noticed that till Tim said it.
Yeah, you see any footage of classic Keith Moon? You rarely would see a hi-hat there. It'd always be a ride cymbal.
Well, there you go. At least he wasn't using the crash cymbal for everything. That would have been intense. But I've never paid attention to it, Tim.
There we are. I obviously know more about drummers than I thought. I thought I only had cursory knowledge of drummers.
I mean, the basics. You can tell me the drums in a drum kit, Tim. So that in and of itself is more than most people.
I mean, I've been in and around drummers my entire life.
You could do a mean version of something on a hi-hat and a snare just to test the sound, right?
Well, it used to be back in Rough Justice, the Mighty Mammal, the drummer in the second incarnation of Rough Justice, not his real name, but that was his band name. Rob is his real name, but we called him the Mighty Mammal. He used to let me sound check his drum kit. And we used to show up at a venue where people are excited for Rough Justice, settled it down, and then I said, "Oh, Rob, can I sound check your drums?" He's like, "All right." So I do, and I can play drums 2% as good as a proper drummer. I can maybe hit one beat and do a roll, and that's about it. And then you could see people in the audience going, is this band? Are we set for this band?
You're like, oh, good. Yeah, that's me when I tried. I told you I went through a drum. I was never a good drummer. I just wasn't. It's a different skill. It really is. I don't even know that it's almost different than it's different than any other instrument because a lot of it is more about your timing and your ability to everything's about timing. I get this, but all of the timing relies on you, Tim. And so I don't want that responsibility. I want to follow, not lead. Do you know what I mean? Because and I know have you gotten lost in a song before when you're playing?
Oh, well, probably did yesterday, to be fair.
If you're a drummer, it's a whole other world if you get lost because everybody followed you. Have you had a drummer that got lost often, Tim?
I've played with various drummers with various skill levels, shall we say.
So then you played with the skill level Joy has. All right, what's next?
Well, I'm going to go with this one. Okay. This is from the album Born in the USA. Bruce Springsteen is the artist. The drummer is Max Weinberg. And I'm going with the song Born in the USA, which it's got that very distinctive opening with the stabs on the drums. Now, The reason I've picked Max Weinberg, so for most people outside of the United States, if you're into music, you would know Max Weinberg as the drummer from Bruce Springsteen. And in fact, Max Weinberg's son now drums in Bruce Springsteen's touring band. I think Max Weinberg does sometimes, it's mostly his son. But if you lived in the United States in the 90s and early 2000s, you would know Max Weinberg as the band leader of the Max Weinberg 7, who was Conan O'Brien's house band.
I knew that's where this was going.
So the question for you, Joy, did you ever used to watch Late Night with Conan O'Brien?
I've watched many episodes of it, yes.
Yeah, Hannah used to love Late Night with Conan O'Brien. And back when I lived in England, when I used to watch David Letterman, we started
Hmm.
watching Conan as well. And of course, as with all these late night shows, they get involved in comedy pieces and skits and stuff with the band. So
Of
it's
course.
funny because only way after the fact I found out that he was Springsteen's drummer. And you can go back and see footage of Bruce Springsteen's band in the 70s, and you're like, that's Max Weinberg. That's the guy that was, I don't know, had a cheese sandwich on his head in Conan 2 weeks ago.
I mean, to be fair, I had no idea who played the drums on Board in the USA till you said it like 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, he was famously the drummer of the E Street Band,
Well, there you go.
his backing band. But yeah, it's funny if you was ever a Conan O'Brien fan, that's probably you would know him as the funny guy in the band, not so much the guy who played with Bruce Springsteen.
Well, I mean, I guess it does make sense though that a lot of these, like, because I hate to say this, but like if you go with Conan on O'Brien or you're one of these bands like the house bands, Tim, that's pretty a cushiony job. You don't have to tour anymore. Like you get to do fun stuff. Like if I were a musician, that would be like a goal. So it wouldn't be it wouldn't be a surprise to me that most of the people who end up in these house bands, I mean, obviously the Roots are an exception. We know where they come from. That a lot of them probably play with other musicians. It's
Sure. I mean, that was
pretty
that
good.
was always my dream gig, was to be in David Letterman's band. Not so much because you wouldn't have to travel, but it's just that the quality of musicianship in that band. And even the Max Weinberg
Mhm.
Seven, they were such a good band.
But that's the other thing is a lot of the house bands can be very talented too, and they can do like I've seen some of them, and I'm like they can just do anything somebody asks them to do on like the drop of a dime.
Oh, 100%. And Paul Schaefer is a band leader as well,
Hmm.
especially with the David Letterman band. Is said they can do anything. They back everyone. And as I said, I've been watching a lot of David Letterman clips on YouTube, and I continue to do so. And then they sometimes will post musical guests on there, and a lot of them are backed by
Hmm.
the house band. And it's like 1 minute they're playing heavy rock, next minute they're playing country, they're
Hmm.
playing soul, and it's just perfect.
That's what always stands out to me is how quickly they can transition. Or there'll be like a joke that's happening on stage, and then they're talking about, oh, and like let's say Conan tells, I don't know, Aria Grande to perform something, right, Tim? And they just do it. And
Yeah.
sometimes you feel like some of it's probably pre-done, but you never really know that. I'm like, they just knew that off the top of their head. Like, the one that I always thought would be a dream, Tim, is I always thought being like a backup singer for like a session to like in session studios.
Mhm.
You don't travel, you get to sing, you go to the cushion, you know what I mean? The cushiony record studio. Like it's kind of like we talk about being like one of the musicians, of course. There's famous musicians that do that, but I always thought being a backup singer would be cool for that.
Yeah, I always fancied being in someone's backing band. But as we've said before, my main goal at this point is having someone else set up and tear down my equipment. I mean, the rest of it was fine. I'll play the wherever Moose Lodge. Can someone else just set it up and tear it down for me?
I mean, that's a fair statement. That's literally, you're not asking much, Tim. You weren't asking much.
No.
But when it happens, y'all, one day it's gonna come on the No Day Music Cast and be like, I'll have you guys know. Someone set up my gear and tore it down. I still think about when Bowling for Soup came to the Lyric in Blacksburg, which, like Tim says, we don't get big bands around here, so it was kind of crazy. They came to the Lyric in Blacksburg, and we were part of the group that was putting it together on campus. Had a few of us, we knew friends who were in it, and they let us stay. And they're like, "Yeah, you guys can stay after, meet the band, help move their equipment." Nah, they used us as roadies, Tim. I just got used there. Like, you could stay and hang out with the band and we'll sign your poster. The poster's over here. I'll show you. But no, I gotta push some dude's heavy cymbals out the door. That's not what I'm staying. Oh, you want to touch the equipment? Here, but carry it. Like I look back and think about how I got used as a roadie that night. And I'm like, do they do this at every show?
I mean, they probably do. It's like the enhanced meet and greet package where you come in, sign a poster, get a T-shirt, and then haul all our equipment into the back of a van.
That's literally what they did. Like, hold on one second. Stay right here, Tim. Not that you're gonna leave, but for real.
Joy is going off to get something to show me. She's gone off camera and she's coming back. She's putting her headphones back on.
Sign poster they gave us that night they were there.
Look at that. That's absolutely fantastic. Joy's showing it right now.
And you can put this one on the Instagrams. But yeah, I realized Bowling for Soup just used me to move their heavy equipment so I would take a side poster. But anyway, don't fall for it, guys. I mean, it was kind of fun, but I was moving at an amp that was quite heavy, if I'm being honest with you.
Guitar amplifiers and bass amps and cabinets, they weigh a lot. They really
They do.
Which is why I use a little modeling unit and a little powered monitor that weighs nothing. Because I'm done with that. I'm done
Fair
with
enough.
moving heavy stuff about.
Well, next time, Tim, ask somebody in the audience if they'd like a signed picture, and then they could do a meet and greet with you after. Maybe they could carry it. All right, what's next?
Okay, so this is Guns N' Roses from the album Appetite for Destruction. Now, Steven Adler was the original drummer for Guns N' Roses. He has quite a distinctive drumming style. They said that a lot of the original songs probably would have never happened the way they did if it wasn't for Steven Adler's drumming. However, he had a lot of personal demons, and he wasn't a good long-term fit for that band. And Matt Sorum was the second drummer in Guns N' Roses, who's a great drummer. He played with the Cult and stuff like that. But I'm going with the song Paradise City because it has a very distinctive drum intro, and then it has that double time thing going on at the end. I mean, it really does show off Steven Adler's drum chops because it is a great song.
I mean, to be fair, that's probably the first song that comes to mind if I think of Guns N' Roses for me personally. Because, like Tim says, it has such a distinct song, and that, like, the double layering at the end is what really sells it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know much about his drumming, but it is interesting to be said. You know how you never really hear, it's always like the guitarist, everybody talks about the drummer's the most forgotten person in the band.
Yeah.
But it is interesting to hear someone say that our music would have never been the way it was if it wasn't for his drumming skills. You don't hear that often.
Absolutely. And he has, in recent years, got clean and sober, and he has joined Guns N' Roses on stage in recent years, touring to do a song or two. He also, I think he has a band called Adler's Appetite, where he goes out with other musicians and plays all the songs from Appetite for Destruction. So, the guy's got to eat. So, he's out there doing stuff. But yeah, Steven Adler, the original drummer with Guns N' Roses.
How many members of Guns N' Roses are there, Tim? Like, if you looked at all, isn't there like a huge list?
There is a huge list because there was a period of time when I think Axl owned the name, and he was the only member because everyone else left. He wanted to go in a sort of an industrial Nine Inch Nails type sound, and I think they all fell out with him, or he fell out with them, or something like that, and they all left. So all you had left was Axl, who owned the name. He put a band together called Guns N' Roses, and that's the band that had Buckethead in it.
Yes. So let's give it a goog. I'm really curious. Hang on. Roses. Let's go to that thing that sounds like encyclopedia. All right. Yes. So members, this is kind of the current lineup. Axl Rose, Duff McClendon, Slash, Dizzy Reed, Richard Fortus, Melissa Reese, and Isaac Carpenter. And then if I go down, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, Buckethead, 15, 16, 17, 18 past members.
I think Rough Justice may have had more members. I
think. Yes, but did you have one named Buckethead, Brain, and Bumblefoot?
We had Monko, we had the Spaceman.
Those are good competitors.
Weasel, Baz, Pogo, bass player Pogo.
Well, this guy is known as Ron Bumblefoot Ty. I don't know anything about Ron Bumblefoot, but he plays a double head. He plays the guitar.
He does. He was the guitarist during the Buckethead sort of era. He plays a VGA guitar, which is a French-made guitar, which famously doesn't have a truss rod, but this isn't a guitar episode. But that double neck guitar, one of them is fretted and one of them is unfretted.
Yeah, I'm looking at the picture. Oh, well, apparently Bumblefoot comes from a bacterial infection of the same. Like, what? Who says, oh, I want to be known as Bumblefoot? Okay, well, anyway. But yeah. So depending on your lifetime, when you saw Guns N' Roses, you could have seen a completely different setup.
Yeah, it would have had Axl Rose, but it could have had many people. The other guitarist that was in Guns N' Roses was DJ Ashba.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I see him at the bottom. He's the last one.
And
And
I think the bass player was Tommy Stinson, I think, at one point.
Tommy Simpson. So you have Izzy Strandon, Rob Gardner, Tracy Guns, Olbeck, Steve Adler, Matt Saram, Gilby Clark, Paul Tobis, I guess I use his name, Robin Thicke, Josh Freese, Tommy Stinson, Chris Pittman, Buckethead Brain, Bumblefoot, Frank Fuhrer, and TJ Ashba. That's just such a weird. Anyway, okay.
I think for the next episode, I'm gonna list out all the members of Guns N' Roses, of Rough Justice, past and present, and compare it to the list of Guns N' Roses.
It'll be pretty comparative. I mean, the names. You guys in the UK had a thing for nicknames for whatever reason. I don't know why, or is it just a band thing? I don't know if it's a UK thing or if it's a band thing.
It's a band thing, and it was a Rough Justice band thing. I don't think other bands probably did it, but like to be in Rough Justice, you had to have your nickname.
Huh. Well, Tim, I'm glad you found your nickname and were able to be a member of the band. And 74 other members apparently did too as well. All right, what's the next song?
Okay, so this is the song by the Kinks from the album called The Kinks. And it is You Really Got Me. Now, the drummer of the Kinks is a chap called Mick Avery.
Yes.
Now, interesting thing about You Really Got Me is he only plays the tambourine on it. He doesn't actually play the drums, but he plays drums on all of the other Kinks songs up to like 1984 or 5 or something like that. What's great about Mick Avery is I have a celebrity connection.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to play in a band called Moroccan Soul with my friend Linda and John Jagger. And we used to play a pub in Richmond, not Richmond, Virginia, but Richmond, Surrey, called the Racing Page. And let's say we played there regularly, maybe 2 or 3 times a year, maybe. Mm-hmm. And it was a really good gig to play. It was on a Sunday night. You used to get a good crowd in there. Good stuff. So we was finished our gig and we were packing up. And as normal, Linda was chatting to someone at the bar. I mean, to be fair, whoever books the gigs, you want someone doing that because it's a good publicity thing.
Yeah,
so she's chatting to this chap at the bar for quite a long amount of time. And then we was introduced to him and we was like, oh, hey, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And he goes, oh, anyway, I'm going to go. And he goes outside and he gets on his bicycle and bicycles off. And then they said, you know what it was? I said, no, he said it's Mick Avery from the Kinks. I was like, really?
You're like, what just happened? No one told me that before.
And then I think he either ran or owned or had some connection with a golf club. So we played his golf club. So we roll up at this. I forget where this golf club was. It was somewhere around where I used to live. So we played for his golf club, and I had a chat with Mick Avery. He seemed like a nice chap. And then a few years after the fact, I was in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland, and the Kinks have been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Yeah. And they have like a theater. And at the time, it had little plaques in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with the people's names and their autographs. Mm-hmm. And I got to the one for the Kinks, and it said Mick Avery. And I went, oh, I know that dude. I played his golf club last year.
We hung out that one time for like 5 minutes, I think, maybe.
Yeah, and he also gave us a quote for our website, which was very nice.
Well, there you go. Now, what's interesting to me about the song, You Really Got Me, what always stood out to me is it sounds... And I've never confirmed or denied this, but you know the song Louie Louie by the Kingsmen?
It's similar. The chord progression is not quite the same, but
I'm not crazy that they're similar, though, right?
I can see that. I can see that you could consider them to be similar.
Okay, well, don't everybody yell at me if you think I'm wrong, but I've always thought that about that song, but I've never known if there was a connection or if it just happens that there's only so many chords in the world, so the song just sounds similar.
Well, I mean, there is the case that there's only so many chords in the world and a lot of songs sound similar, so...
Yeah, I mean, well, known chords, I guess technically, if you want to get into music theory, people can make up chords at any time, Tim, or something, whatever.
Well, I mean, any sequence of notes, there's probably...
Can be considered.
Yeah, there's probably a technical way of explaining it. What was funny, we was practicing with Nightwings the other day. Mm-hmm. And the keyboard player, Jennifer, said to me, she said, what's the chord progression in this song we're practicing? And I gave her all the chords. And I said, Jennifer, you see my thumbnail here? I said half of that I've just used up as all the music theory knowledge that I have by explaining this to you.
That's so funny. I mean, that's fair. I'm just saying, it sounds very similar to me because when you hear I mean, for those who don't know what I'm talking about, it's like the Louie Louie song. Everybody's heard that song. Louie, oh, yeah, we gotta go. Dun, 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 dun. And then when you hear the now I can't hear You Really Got Me in my head because all I can hear is Louie Louie. I was trying to make the reference, but it's gone. But that's the song I'm talking about. And for whatever reason, it always reminds me of the other song.
There we are.
One day someone's gonna win Jeopardy, and it's gonna turn out that I was correct, Tim. There's some sequence of chords that are the same. Have you ever played You Really Got Me in a band?
More times than I care to remember.
That's what I figured. I mean, the Kinks are one of those bands that I feel like there's a few songs. There's probably like maybe 4 of their songs that most people who've been in any type of band could play in their sleep at this point.
I mean, it's not a virtuoso piece by any stretch of the imagination. And as we've said before, what's famous about You Really Got Me is one of the first recorded, well, it's not the first, but it's a very iconic early recording of a distorted electric guitar. And the way he made that is his Vox amplifier that he had a pencil and he stabbed the pencil through the cone of the speaker to make it distort. And that is the sound that you hear on the track.
There you go. I mean, I don't know. They're just one of those bands that I think they're like, you could walk into a CVS right now, Tim, and they might be playing.
Yeah, but it's probably Lazy Sunny Afternoon or something.
Exactly. They do have some songs that you don't hear very often. And I still have a very distinct, like I said, one of the very first things that I learned when I got my first car was when CD players were a thing, is if you leave the CD in the car, Tim, every time you turn the car on, you hear it start from the beginning of the album. And the first song that played was the Kinks. You Really Got Me. So I can never hear that again.
Yeah, I've had things like that with iPods, and that song just gets burned in your brain.
But anyway, all right. What's your next song, Tim?
Okay, so I'm going to go with the song Rosanna by Toto from Toto 4. Now, the drummer is Jeff Porcaro. He sadly is no longer with us, but he is the guy who played drums on almost all of the classic Toto songs. Now, what's great about Jeff Porcaro, I don't know if you even know this, but he was a session drummer before he got involved with Toto. I mean, Toto was all of them.
I think you've mentioned it before.
Yeah, like Steve Lukather was a legendary session guitar player. Jeff Porcaro, famous legendary session drummer, and a lot of the other Toto guys were all session guys before putting Toto together. And he played drums on nearly all of Michael Jackson's Thriller.
Yes, you've said that before, but I didn't know that until you told me. And Toto's one of those bands that's like apparently super popular outside of the United States still. Yeah, but not so much in the United States.
Yeah, they tour Europe, UK, Australia, Asia. They're very big. I mean, they still have a following in the United States. I mean, I do regret not seeing them at the Harvester in Rocky Mount, which is a room the size of my front room, and I could have seen Toto there. But I mean, at this point, Toto is Steve Lukather and a few others.
I was going to say, who's in the band besides Steve Lukather?
Yeah, there's probably more members of Toto at this point than there have been members of Guns N' Roses.
Or if not, it's pretty close, to be honest.
It's in the same idea, but Rosanna is such a great song. It's got a cool drum pattern on it, and of course, it is written about Rosanna Arquette. I don't know if you knew that.
I don't think I did, but that doesn't surprise me. This is also one of those songs that will live rent-free in your head, regardless if you want it to or not. Actually, I think every Toto song is an earworm if I've ever heard one. But this song specifically, I think is a good one because it's got kind of like, I don't know what the term for it is, but there's like a shuffle pattern or something with the guitar or the drums that are playing that's different than you hear in other music. When he's kind of like, it's like half, like he's playing in half time. And so it creates like a shuffle sound that I don't think you hear in a lot of other music. And that's kind of what makes the Rosanna pretty cool. Now, here's a question for you, Tim. We've talked about this and I've debated on doing this if it's a yacht rock song or not. Do you think Toto is a yacht rock?
Well, this question was asked to Steve Lukather, Mr. Toto himself.
I didn't know that when I asked.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on your band being called yacht rock? And he says He says, if you're listening to my music, I'm probably making money out of it, so you can call it whatever you like.
Also, like, I don't see anything wrong with listening on a yacht to Toto in theory. If you have a yacht.
Well, what would be bad for me is I get seasick, so I would not want to be on that yacht in the first place.
Fair enough. I just was curious because Toto's one of those bands and they went back and forth on whether to define as yacht rock or not. Now, I will say my favorite Toto song is Hold the Line. Cliche as it is, I absolutely love that song. That is one of those songs that has one of the best overall like sounds that you hear on the radio from like the guitar licks to the drumming to the everything. Hold the Line will always be. I would take that anytime over Africa.
Well, and in fact, I played Hold the Line last night, in fact.
There you go. Have you played it often, Tim, or is it one that just comes up periodically?
We practiced it at the very last practice, and the gig we played last night, we played in the very small Moose Lodge, and we played at 7 p.m. and we played 3 sets. And then as we were somewhere getting to the end of our third set, and we were supposed to finish at 11, 2 people beside the bar said, "Can you play longer?" And we're like, "Well, we've played since 7." So they came over and gave us $150 and said, "Will you play another hour?" And we said, "Yes, we can."
And so you brought up Hold the Line by Toto.
Yeah, because we was running out of material, really. So we was pulling out of songs that we'd only half practiced. But it was fine.
Well, if it was that late in the night, too, half of them were already probably under the influence. They don't know, Tim.
Exactly.
Just pull out Footloose and make it last for a few extra chords. They'll never know. All right. Well, how much time do we have left? Because
we have time for one more song.
All right. Give it to me.
Okay, and I'm going to go with a Carpenters song. The drummer being Karen Carpenter. She was an amazing drummer, and I think there's this famously in like the 1967 Playboy Musician of the Year for drummers or something. She was like the drummer of the year or something like that. And a few people was like, Karen Carpenter, but she was a really, really good drummer. And there's videos.
She has a diehard fandom, though, if you go down her rabbit hole.
Yeah, and there's like a drum battle she did with Buddy Rich, who's known as an amazing sort of jazz drummer, and she was 100% holding her own. So I've picked the song "Ticket to Ride." Now, I didn't include Ringo on this list because I thought I'd sort of scoop him up in this, and Ringo has a very distinctive drum pattern on Ticket to Ride, and the way that the Carpenters do it is very different from the Beatles, but it's still sort of nudging in that sort of direction. But again, it has the drumming prowess of Karen Carpenter.
Well, there you go. And I went down the Karen Carpenter rabbit hole not too long ago. There's like a whole subset of her drumming videos on YouTube, and they're like diehard fans mixed with, like Tim said, the people who are like, ugh, Karen Carpenter is not a drummer. But then I'm like, well, I'm watching her play the drums, so how does that make sense?
Yeah.
But anyway, she also has like a 3-octave range, like I don't know if she would be probably like a counteralto like voice. Like her ability to sing was really good too. Like she has a wonderful voice mixed with the fact that she was talented as a drummer as well. But if you haven't went down that rabbit hole, I highly suggest go on YouTube, just look up her drumming because it's weird. And I hate to say this, but I mean, I think sexism played in so much to her not getting as much as like people following her as a drummer as they should have been. Because I went and, like Tim said, I went and looked it up, and I kind of like jaw dropped. I mean, I knew who the Carpenters were, but didn't know she was that good of an actual drummer.
Yeah, she was a drummer first and foremost, and a sort of a vocalist after the fact.
And her vocals were great too. So I found it very interesting. But yeah, I went down that rabbit hole. She was also really pretty. I think she struggled a lot with some type of eating disorder things and things of that nature. So that I'm sure that contributed as well. But of course, she passed away very young. So
sadly.
Yep. But if you haven't, I would highly suggest, especially if you like to watch drum videos as I do, because they do something that I could never do, Tim. With that being said, though, I was talking about the Phil Collins thing earlier. I had never really thought about how physically hard it would be to be a drummer and perform for so long for that many years, Tim. I think of all the instruments, being a drummer has to be the most physically straining.
I think so. I mean, I can tell you as somebody who plays guitar more or less every weekend and stands up for 3 or 4 hours doing it, I have a very light guitar. All my guitars weigh 7 pounds or less. Even that, I'm driving home from a gig, I'm feeling dehydrated and I'm feeling tired. And from having just played guitar, playing drums is a completely different skill set. And then, like you said, it really does wear you out.
Oh, I would think that like you're constantly working all those muscles in your upper back, and then you're kind of, I don't want to say hunched over, but in a way you have to be, you know what I mean, to physically to do what you need to do. I'm just saying, this is to end our drum episode for everybody who's been doing that for years. I imagine that it's physically taxing on the body.
Absolutely. And that's another reason why Phil Collins no longer drums, unfortunately.
Well, I have a feeling that, like, we talked a lot about different bands going through different drummers and stuff. That's probably a factor in it, especially if you do this all the time and you're like a session, being like a session drummer would probably be a lot better. But if you're like having to go, you know what I mean, 10 say go on gigs long term, 6 months instead of ever like once a week, it probably night after night after night. I just feel like my back would be killing me.
Absolutely. But that's a.
It's for the art.
That's us getting older with that viewpoint. When you're 22 years old and reckless.
I know. They probably, when everybody started drumming, they never once thought about that, Tim.
No.
Then they start hitting the late 30s and they're like, wait a second, that ache wasn't there before. Anyway, so with that, we appreciate the drummers, and I'm glad you guys can do it because I could never.
Absolutely. And I also wanted to give a notable mention to Shaka Khan, who is a fabulous drummer. I couldn't find any recorded works with Shaka Khan on it, but there is a video on YouTube of her playing drums, and it is superb.
So speaking of that, I have to give Phil Reese a shout out. And by giving Phil Reese a shout out, I have to explain how this relates. Me and you talked about Pharrell Williams, and we didn't know a whole lot about him. And besides, like, he did a lot of music producing, and he did a lot of, like, he was in a few songs and different things like that. He wrote a lot of music for other people. Apparently, Phil Reese has informed me that Pharrell Williams is a very good drummer.
Oh, well, there you go.
He came back to me after the episode and was like, I just want you guys to know you missed this piece. And he told me that Pharrell Williams was a very good drummer. I have not Googled that to confirm it. So if Phil is wrong, that's Phil Reese's fault. But that is what he told me, Tim. He said we should look into his drumming because apparently he's a very good one.
There we are. Well, that's a top tip at the end of the episode.
All right. With that, what would you like to leave the people with, Tim?
Just be kind to everyone that you meet.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.